morning. How are you today? Merry Christmas. Feliz Navidad. Joyeux Noël. That's, I think, French. But whatever. Merry Christmas to you. And we're taking a break from Hebrews because we're going to get back to it on the 26th week from tomorrow, Tuesday. But right now we gotta read the Christmas story. Come on and get nuggets and learn the birth of our Savior. Beautiful. The birth of our Savior. Luke and Matthew are the ones that are most read at Christmas time because the Gospel of Mark bypasses Mary, Joseph, and that whole story. And John starts with, in the beginning was God, and goes back on a spiritual tangent, eternal, ethereal, just totally different than the nuts and bolts story of Matthew and Luke. Luke is the longest because Luke gives the pre-Christmas story, not just the Christmas story, the pre-Christmas. And there's good lessons for us. What's the pre-Christmas story? Well, the Old Testament, in many places, many ways, foretold the coming of Messiah. But in the prophet Malachi, the last book of the Old Testament, it is predicted, prophesied, that the forerunner would come. There would be a forerunner, someone to go before Messiah, sequentially, to announce his unveiling to Israel. And Jesus called that person the greatest man ever born of a woman, although he never did a miracle. Who's that man? John the Baptist. So Luke is a doctor, not one of the original 12, and he tells us that he researched and went to all the eyewitnesses he could find, and not only wrote the book of Acts that way of the birth of the church, but wrote his Gospel of Luke. So we read in Luke chapter 1, verse 1, many have undertaken to draw up an account of the things that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed down to us by those who from the first were eyewitnesses and servants of the word. With this in mind, since I myself have carefully, as a scientist would, he's a physician, carefully investigated everything from the beginning, I too decided to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, so that you may know the certainty of the things you have been taught. In the time of Herod, king of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah, who belonged to the priestly division of Abijah. His wife Elizabeth was also a descendant of Aaron, the priestly family. Both of them were righteous in the sight of God, observing all the Lord's commands and decrees blamelessly. But they were childless because Elizabeth was not able to conceive, and they were both very old. Isn't that something? Zechariah and Elizabeth, let's stop, are going to become the parents of the one Jesus said is the greatest man ever born of a woman. He's the forerunner. He's going to prepare the way for the coming of Messiah. He's going to baptize Jesus in water in the Jordan River. So God can pick any parents he wants to have the birth of that baby. Who would you pick? You're God. Anybody. You know, super talented maybe, handsome father, maybe about 30, 28, 30, 32. The wife, 24, 25. Virile, strong, at the top of their game, as they say. And let their first child be the Baptist. You got to find someone who loves the Lord, who's going to raise them right. No, God doesn't do that. No, wait a minute. King Herod is mentioned. Here's another lesson. That Herod was the one who rebuilt the temple. When Jesus went to Jerusalem, he looked up at this marvel of architecture and beauty, overwhelming kind of human glory. It was the temple that took decades, not years, decades to build. King Herod. His name is just a throw-in. He's just mentioned in passing. You can read history about him. Oh, find history books. The people in Rome, the emperor knew who King Herod was. Oh, yeah. King Herod was a name to be reckoned with. And God bypasses that. Not going to be born in a palace. Not going to be born with money all around him. Talent and interesting people. You know the parents are going to be? An old priest and his old wife, who, by the way, haven't had any children. This sounds so much like God, doesn't it? He likes to take situations that look hopeless, and he likes to take people that are unknown, and their names are in the Bible. Herod's just mentioned in a negative way. Like, who are the biggest names right now in our culture? Might not be so with God. Who are the big names with God? Never has changed. The Zechariahs and Elizabeths. Serving God. Sold out to God. Careful, holy living. Careful in how they spoke and lived. Observant of all the commands of the Lord. Not perfect, but godly, devoted to God. And God says, that's where I want the Baptist to be raised. I want those arms around him. I want him to hear their conversation. So Zechariah and Elizabeth, who were unknown at that time, no one ever wrote about them. They were never in People magazine. Nobody did a biopic on them. But great in the eyes of the Lord. That encourages me. You and I can live lives that are great in the eyes of the Lord. Not great by the culture. The culture passes away, and the culture is really into some weird sideways stuff. Am I correct? Think of some of the people that are praised and are, and then they're idols of the culture. Then later they're found out what? They were predators? They were child molesters? They were what? They did what to their girlfriend? They beat who? Not everything that glitters is gold. But you and I can just, in our own way, doing God's will, be special in His sight. Let's do it. When your life ends, no one will care what the culture thought of you. But you and I, we want to hear, well done. Well done, Zechariah and Elizabeth. I was tracking you the whole way. And you will be the ones to be the parents of John the Baptist. Come on, let's live for God today. Blessings. See you tomorrow.